Good morning and welcome to the teleconference for August 5th, 2021. This is the Library's Facilities Financing Authority, LFFA, board meeting. It will begin at 9 and then immediately followed by the Library Joint Powers Authority, LJPA, board meeting. These meetings will run back to back. We also have an opportunity for you to join by phone. It's 1-888-788-0099 and then enter the meeting ID of 925-9060-9803. As an attendee, your microphone is muted for the entire meeting unless you follow the process for public comments. You do not need a microphone, camera, or a screen if you only want to listen, as this meeting is accessible by landline or mobile phone. If you need assistance, please call the library's telephone information line at 1-831-427-7713. The board will take public comments as outlined in the posted agenda and in the next slides. All written comments must include the agenda item number and be received prior to the close of public comment on that agenda item. If you're joining by computer, you may use the Q&A feature to type your comments. On the attendee control bar near the bottom of the screen, you'll see the Q&A icon. You may also use the raise hand icon to raise your hand. Moderator will either call your name or announce the last 3 digits of your phone number when it is your turn. State your name, and then you'll have 3 minutes of speaking time. So on the Zoom control bar down at the bottom, you'll see some audio settings on the lower left, and then the raise hand and Q&A icons in the middle, and then leave in a red rectangle. If you're using a mobile device, the Q&A icon and the raise hand icons likely appear near the top right corner of the screen, so everything is reversed. If you've called into this meeting using a telephone only, you may raise your hand by pressing *9 on your keypad. The moderator will announce the last 3 digits of your phone number when it is your turn to comment. Pressing *6 to unmute. You will have 3 minutes of speaking time. Once the board meeting begins, depending on the size of your mobile device screen, you may need to scroll over to view whoever's speaking. If you're accessing this meeting via the web browser only or a Chromebook without Zoom's Progressive Web App, PWA, installed, you will not see all panelists at one time, only the panelists speaking. The chair of the board, Martine Bernal, will now call the meeting to order. We're transitioning to gallery view. Please stand by.
All right, thank you very much, Sarah. I'd like to call to order the Thursday, August 5th, 2021 meeting of the Santa Cruz Library's Facilities Financing Authority. May we please have a roll call?
Director Carlos Palacios.
Here.
Director Steve Jasberg, alternate for Director Goldstein.
Here.
Vice Chair Tina Friend.
Here.
And Chair Martine Bernal.
Here. Next on the agenda, we have additional materials. Are there any additional materials? I don't believe so. No, there are. Okay. Any additions and deletions to the agenda this morning?
I have none.
Thank you. Next is oral communication. This is an opportunity for any member of the public to comment to the board on any item related to the business of the board, but that is not listed on the agenda this morning. Do we have any members of the public that like to comment under oral communication?
Chair Bernal, there are no public comments.
Thank you. Next, we have Executive Director report. Turn it over to Eric.
Hi, thank you. We are moving along. We've described some updates for some of the branches, but we are still largely on schedule for from the report that we had the prior time we met.
Okay. Are there any questions for Eric from board members? Okay. Are there any members of the public that like to comment on the Executive Director report?
Chair Bernal, there are no public comments.
Okay, so we'll move on. That's not an action item. Next is project updates and comments by board members. It's an opportunity for board members to comment on any projects that they'd like to update on. Do you have any board members?
Yeah, Chair Bernal, I do have an update for Scotts Valley. I'm very pleased to relay that we had a council meeting last night. And in that meeting, our city council awarded the contract for our library renovations project. So we awarded a $2.8 million contract. We're excited. We're going to get underway late August, I think it shows in the report, and planning about a 6-month renovation. And our community is just very excited about it. And also for the treasurer, we will be spending our bond money. And I know that I really appreciate the reminders on that, but that is moving forward. So just very happy to report that Scotts Valley is steaming ahead.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from board members or updates? Okay, it doesn't look like it. Okay, are there any members of the public that would like to comment on item 6, project updates and comments by board members?
Chair Bernal, there are no public comments.
Thank you. So that takes us to item 7, which is a consent calendar. We have one item. Anybody like to pull that item? Doesn't look like it. Are there any members of the public that like to comment on the consent calendar?
Chair Bernal, there are no public comments.
Okay, so then take a motion to approve the consent calendar.
I'll move approval of the consent calendar item 7A.
Second.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Director Palacios,
Yes.
Director Jasberg,
Yes.
Vice Chair Friend,
Aye.
and Chair Bernal.
Aye. So that passes unanimously. Thank you. Next is item 8 under general business. We have item A, special tax bond quarterly financial statements. Do we have a presentation from Mr. Driscoll?
Good morning, Edith
Morning.
Driscoll, the LFFA Treasurer Controller. The item you have before you is our quarterly financial report, and this is the report as of June 30th, 2021. And I, of course, want to note that I know I have had some transactions coming through between June 30th and today, which is in August. So it doesn't reflect any transactions that I have approved in the month of July. The attached statements provide your board with a summary of the activity and balances of the funds held in trust at the Bank of New York. And those are the funds that we have bonded for, but have not yet spent. The balance currently held as of June 30th was $16,173,351.69. The different schedules attached reflect how the money has been distributed and whose individual accounts still have funds outstanding. That's the end of my report. I ask that you accept and file this quarterly report, and I anticipate coming back at the end of the next quarter with the next report. I'm available if there's any questions.
Yeah, are there any questions from board members? Doesn't look like it. Okay, do we have any comments from the public regarding item 8A?
Chair Bernal, there are no public comments.
Okay, with that then, I'll take a motion to accept and file the financial statements.
I'd move to accept and file the quarterly financial statements.
I'll second.
Okay, for the motion and second, may we please have a roll call vote?
Director Palacios,
Yes.
Director Jasberg,
Aye.
Vice Chair Friend,
Aye.
Chair Bernal.
Yes, so that passes unanimously. Okay, that takes us to item 9, which is just a schedule of upcoming meetings. The next meeting is scheduled October 7th, 5 p.m. And unless there's any questions, we'll move on to the last item, which is.
I see a hand up actually.
Okay, sorry.
By Ms.
Yes.
Marquez.
Good morning, board members. This is Ruby Marquez, your counsel, just for the LFFA portion of this morning. And I wanted to alert you, as you probably already know, that we are currently operating under suspended Brown Act rules that allow us to do virtual teleconferencing like this. My understanding is that they're set to expire at the end of September. And we're hoping that the governor will issue another extension, but I haven't heard anything different yet. And I know there's several Brown Act bills pending in Sacramento. So I just wanted to put that on your radar, just in case we're not able to do a total virtual meeting in October. But I'm sure we'll work that out ahead of time and do properly notice if we need to have an in-person meeting of some combination. Thanks.
Thanks, Ruby. If I could just interject, the LAC is meeting at Capitola for their next meeting in September. So if that is something that the board is interested in, we can certainly arrange for everyone to be accommodated at Capitola, the new Capitola Library.
And is that in person or is that a hybrid setup?
I don't know if we'll be ready for a hybrid yet, but that would
Okay.
be for in person.
So they're meeting in person there. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So that's in September. So then our next meeting, so that I guess it would be maybe our next meeting is not till October. I won't be here. So I think we'll have to talk. We'll have to work with the next chair to sort that out. Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you. And I guess we'll see what the status is of the pandemic and everything else. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Marcus. That's very helpful. Okay. Unless there are any other questions on item 9 or comments? Okay. Then with that, then it's item 10, which is adjournment. So thank you, everyone. So go ahead and start, Sarah.
Yes, this is now the Library Joint Powers Authority Board meeting, LJPA, for August 5th, 2021.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, I'd like to call to order the Santa Cruz City County Libraries Joint Powers Authority Board regular meeting of Thursday, August 5th, 2021. The first item on the agenda is a call to order. May we please have a roll call?
Director Palacios,
Here.
Director Jasberg,
Here.
Vice Chair Friend,
Here.
Chair Bernard.
Here. Thank you. Next on the agenda is additional materials. Are there any additional materials?
I have none.
Okay, thank you. Next is additions and deletions to the agenda. I don't believe there are any. Let's just double check.
I have none.
Thank you. Next is oral communications. This is an opportunity for members of the public to speak to the board on items related to the business of the board, but that there are items that are not on the agenda today. Is there any member of the public that'd like to speak to us under oral communications?
Chair Burnell, we do have 2 members of the public who would like to speak. This is caller ending in 362. Go ahead, please identify yourself first.
Good morning, this is Judy Grunstra. Since the JPA hires the library director and 2 new city managers are also being recruited, I'm concerned whether these new city managers will have libraries as a priority. Also, I have read that the public will have an opportunity to give input into choice of the new library director. Can you provide any information on what form that input will take and when that might happen? Thank you.
And now Jean Brocklebank and Michael Lewis. Go ahead, please identify yourselves first.
Good morning, this is Jean Brocklebank. I hope everyone will watch the brief video titled Santa Cruz Warriors CEO Chris Murphy Talks About Libraries. The link to the video in support of the Current Friends campaign to raise funds for 3 branches came with my Friends of Santa Cruz Public Library's newsletter. Throughout the video, President Murphy, Warriors President Murphy, has excitement in his voice, in his eyes, literally written all over his face, as he talks about the Warriors' quote, commitment to education and quote, promoting the love of reading amongst the youth of Santa Cruz County. He says their quote, Read to Achieve program is one of the most extensive in all of sports, informing us that, also quoted, this year alone, we've reached almost 3,000 Santa Cruz kids, helping to instill a love of reading and literacy. He continues, quote, the look on the children's faces when we're in the schools and reading to them. Our players are in the classroom and the children see the passion the players have for reading. And you see the excitement and you see their attitudes change. He finishes with, quote, our libraries are a place for our youth that are there to continue to learn to read, to develop that love for reading, and to have access they need to improve their educational outcome. These are his words: literacy, reading, love of reading, education. He does not refer to once to the spatial expansiveness of the modernized library branches, nor use the words I've heard from library administrators recently, like retail and calling us customers. I find this love of reading and educational outcome, I find this from a sports figure importantly refreshing and worth emulating. I hope you will also. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Just wanted to note with respect to the library director recruitment, I know that there's a community survey that will be coming out where members of the community will be able to provide input regarding characteristics, traits, what they'd like to see in our new library director. So that will be out, I think, soon, and I'm sure there'll be a press release and information that'll be issued. So that will be that opportunity. Okay, so with that, let's move on to the next item on the agenda, which is report by library director.
I've submitted it as a written report, and I'm trying to also preview what's coming up this fall. We are working hard now on the strategic plan, and so we will also be bringing forward in the fall our leader on the collections and technical services for the branch. Today, you're going to hear from the leaders on our programs and services. And we're going to be taking a deeper dive into this as we move through the next 6 months.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from board members regarding the report by the library director? So starting on page 7 of our agenda packet. Okay. Doesn't look like it. Are there any members of the public that have any comments on item 5, report by library director?
Chair Bernal, there are no public comments.
Okay, so thank you. That's not an action item. We'll move on to the next item, which is item 6, which is report by Friends of the Santa Cruz Public Libraries.
And if it's okay, Bruce Cotter is out right now in an important meeting raising money for the library, and he provided me with his report. So if I could, I'll read what he sent me.
Yes, please.
He writes that he apologizes for not being able to attend this month's meeting. He is working right now in the Capital Campaign Committee, and he's providing this report instead. The Capital Campaign is moving ahead. He has raised, the Friends of the Library have raised over $330,000 so far. They have a clear vision of where the next $230,000 will come from. The Friends recently hosted Congressman Jimmy Panetta and potential donors on a construction tour of the Branciforte Library. They also hosted Santa Cruz Mayor Donna Meyer and former mayors Cynthia Matthews and Hillary Bryant, along with potential donors at the Garfield Park Library. They are moving into the public phase of the campaign now. So if you could help us by spreading the word about the campaign, we would be grateful. If you would like campaign material, please contact the Friends of the Library. And they will be glad to provide that to you. We will be providing approximately, the Friends of the Library will be providing approximately $21,000 to the county this month to support needs at the Live Oak branch. Some of these funds come from the Aberman family gift and some from the general fundraising activities of the Friends. Retired attorney Lynn Marcus Weiner has recently joined the board of the Friends, and we look forward to having her expertise on the board. That's Bruce's report.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from board members? Great, there's doing a lot of work. That's really great to hear all the work that you're doing. Let's see, are there any members of the public that like to comment on the report by the Friends of the Santa Cruz Public Libraries?
Chair Bernal, there are no public comments.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to the next item, which is report by Library Advisory Commission.
Good morning, board members. Good to see you all today. I have a short report to provide this morning. The Library Advisory Commission last met on Monday, July 19th via Zoom teleconference. It was the Commission's last meeting with Director Nimitz. I understand she's recently had a retirement party. We are certainly going to miss her dedication, hard work, and the fact that she always brought a very thoughtful and mindful approach to her work and leadership at the library. So very glad for her service, and we hope to bring her back into the fold either through the Friends group or in some other fashion. As part of Assistant Director Howard's updates, the Commission was invited to provide feedback in the search process for a new director. So we had a public comment on this today, and I would encourage anyone who is interested in providing feedback to contact the Commission clerk with feedback or questions that they would like to provide through the Library Advisory Commission process. In that meeting, we learned that June Garcia will be leading that search. She was the person that found us Susan. So I think a lot of people have a lot of faith in her efforts, and the Commission agreed to form a subcommittee to provide feedback on the library director search. So that subcommittee is going to be Vice Chair Rena Dubin, Commissioners Ritma and Wynn. So that's a subcommittee of very passionate people about library services as well as library operations. So if there is any feedback, please contact the clerk, and the clerk will make sure that that feedback is relayed to the subcommittee, which can provide a report out on that process. I hope that's helpful. In addition, the Commission heard from Assistant Director Howard a fourth quarter work plan report, and we also received a presentation on the summer reading program by Heather Norquist and Jessica Goodman. These both, the report and the presentation, conveyed very impressive results from the library team and also provided important background for the Commission to have as the library continues to progress through its strategic planning process. So much thanks to the staff for doing that hard work and pulling that information together. It's been incredibly helpful and really great to see the results that they're garnering. Finally, the Commission made two motions in our meeting. We reviewed and unanimously endorsed the revisions to the meeting room policy. Those changes seem to, for the most part, make that policy a little more evergreen, which made a lot of sense. The Commissioners did have some feedback on the same-day reservation element change of that policy and encouraged staff to watch this closely and possibly reevaluate if future complications arise. But again, that was endorsed and unanimously by the Commission. And finally, the Commission also unanimously endorsed the library's practice of flying the LGBTQ flag throughout the year. And this concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Bass. Any questions from board members?
I have a comment and a question, Chair Bernal. First of all, thank you so much for that report, Lindsay. And I'm happy to say that Scotts Valley is returning a member to the commission. So at last night's council meeting, the city council also appointed our new LAC new commissioner, and that's Pamela. She goes by Peppy, so Peppy Wool. And she's very excited to join. And so we will send over that official notice, Director Howard. So we'll get that over to you. So very happy to have that seat filled. I know that there's been anxiety about not having Scotts Valley there. And second, thank you so much for the overview of your commission's actions. Would you be able to stick around for a few minutes until the board takes up the agenda item on the commemorative flag policy and the flag? I think that since your commission was so involved in it, I just hearing the depth of your conversation, hearing the discussion, hearing the elements, why the recommendation is what it is, I think that could be very useful for the board's discussion. So if I could trouble you to hang on for a few minutes, I think we'd really enjoy your voice in that conversation.
Absolutely happy to.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments for this item? Okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda then is comments by board members. Are there any comments by board members?
I have one as well, Chair Bernal. I just wanted to announce to the board and library staff, members of the community that are here, that this will be my last board meeting. I am moving on from the city of Scotts Valley, and so I won't be with you at your October meeting. I want to really just thank the incredible professionalism of the staff. I've so enjoyed working with Susan, with Director Howard, and all the staff, especially around our Scotts Valley branch and all of our work to get the renovations going. And also just thanks to this board too for really running and keeping going a very professional, very current, very meeting a moment sort of library system, which has just evolved and adapted wonderfully. So I want to thank you for all of that, and I've enjoyed my time. And then just to let you know what's happening with Scotts Valley. So the city council is currently in the selection process to name an interim city manager. I expect they'll do that at either our August 18th council meeting or perhaps September 1st. So that interim city manager will be in place, I imagine, 5, 6, 7 months. Simultaneously, a permanent recruitment will be occurring. So you will see an interim here. I'm joining you at the board for these meetings. And as soon as we know that person, I will make the appropriate introductions and make sure. And I'm also working very hard on a very solid transition. There's a member of the public that commented about knowing and caring about the libraries. And, we completely agree. This is a very important part of our community. So in my transition, I will absolutely emphasize and provide the best information and context that I can. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other comments from board members? Okay, I guess I should also comment that this is also my last board meeting. As everyone knows, I'll be retiring by the end of this month. Well, not maybe everyone, but I will be retiring by the end of this month. And also just wanted to express my gratitude and appreciation for the opportunity to have been able to serve on this board for so many years. And it really is satisfying seeing all the accomplishments that have been made and where things are at. And all the progress that's moving forward, which is really, really great. Despite the tremendous challenges that we've had, particularly in the last few years. So it's for me at least, it's satisfying to see that at least I'm leaving and where things are in a good spot. Although there's always challenges, but there's lots of opportunities, and certainly this community cares very deeply about their libraries, and that's the most important thing. I haven't seen that change. It just that is one thing that's been consistent, and knowing that the libraries will be in good hands moving forward, regardless of the changes that happen. So I just want to thank everyone. With respect to my replacement, the council has been doing a recruitment process, and they'll be considering and doing an update at their next council meeting, which is on August 8th. So you'll have to stay tuned to see what the council decides with respect to that. Okay, and that's all I have. let's move on then to the next item, which is correspondence by public. Any comments on that from anyone? Questions? Okay. Next is a consent calendar. Are there any items on the consent calendar that board members would like to pull?
Yeah, I'd like to pull item I. This has to do with the LGBTQ pride flag display. And just because I think it nests in really well with the discussion of the policy. So I just feel like those are really part and parcel. So I'd recommend that we just remove that from consent and move that as part of the consideration of item B on general business.
Okay. All right. Yes, that's items A through J. Item I will close that. Okay. Are there any other items that doesn't look like it? Okay. Are there items on the consent calendar that the public would like to comment or ask to be pulled?
Chair Brunel, there is a comment. On July 31st, Judy Grunstraw emailed and said, quote, "Hello, since the topic of a commemorative flag policy is item 11B under general business, it seems proper to pull approval of that from the consent agenda and have it discussed as part of the commemorative flag policy. Thank you, Judy Grunstraw," end quote.
Okay.
And that ends public comment.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that's exactly what we're doing. Okay. All right, so now I'll take a motion to approve the consent calendar, except for items I.
So I'll move approval of the consent agenda as amended.
I'll second.
Okay, may we please have a roll call vote?
Director Palacios
Yes.
and Director Jasberg,
Aye.
Vice Chair Friend,
Aye.
Chair Bernard.
Aye. Okay, so that passes unanimously. Next, we have general business, and we'll do the item we just pulled. We'll consolidate that with item 11B. So we'll first move on to item 11A, which is a meeting room policy number 315.
Hi, thank you. So prior to the pandemic, we came to you with a policy on our room reservation, and soon after that, we had to close the buildings down. So we were not able to really implement that policy. We are looking forward to bringing room reservation back in the fall. And during this period, while we've been closed, we've explored options for improving our software to help us manage the room reservation. And we adopted a new software system for this. And that prompted us to reconsider some of the implications of the policy. So we have Jessica Goodman, who you'll also be hearing from in just a little bit on adult services. She's been the lead on this project to review the policy and come up with recommendations and help revise the policy that we're bringing to you now. So I'm going to turn it over to Jessica.
Good morning. So as Eric said, we never really got to implement the meeting room policy, so we're excited to finally put that into use. I am working on the development of the new room booking software, and one of the things that the software does is it functions based on our meeting room policy. So we did review the policy and look at some things that we think merit some changes. I do think that for the most part, these 4 revisions are pretty minor. They don't really change the principles of the adopted policy. The first is that we just want to emphasize that the community rooms are intended for groups. So we're making sure that that is in each statement on the use of the community rooms. So that's one. The second is what LAC Chair Bass mentioned about wanting to change the study rooms to same day only use. And there are a few considerations there. You know, we do want to keep an eye on whether that would, reserving in advance, if that would unintentionally privilege people who have greater access to technology. There are some other considerations there. You know, do you have better follow through with people showing up if it's the same day versus if they've reserved it the day before? And as we develop the strategic plan, we'll also, I think, get a better sense of any equity considerations to take into account. So as Chair Bass said, we will be watching and evaluating how that goes. There is a large section of the policy that describes the type of rooms available. Some of that's outdated. I think it says something like Aptos has study rooms in 2021 or something like that, which is obviously not the case. But in looking at that, we also felt that that section is really informational. And so it'll be on the website. It'll be on any of our publicity and marketing materials, informational materials. But it's not really policy because it's not really a set of guiding principles. So we wanted to take that out. And then the last thing is looking at potential after hours use. We'll be developing some contracts and some procedures for that. But it did refer people to the various regional managers, and we don't currently have regional managers. So we thought we would change that to library administration, which is not a contact that is likely to change again, you know, in the next 5 years or so. And then they can get the request connected to the right person. So some partnerships say have to do with like adult programs. So that would be going to me. Others are more just about the use of the room after hours. And so that might go to the manager who's in charge of branch on-site operations. So, so those are the 4 revisions that we'd like to make, and we hope that you will approve them.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Goodman. Are there any questions regarding the report? Doesn't look like there are any questions. All right, yeah, the changes make complete sense to me. We'll now turn it over to see if there are any comments from the public regarding this item.
Chair Bernal, there are no public comments.
Okay, so with that, take a motion.
Move approval of the meeting room policy recommendations by staff. And thank you very much for your work on this.
And I'll second that. And I'll also say, yeah, I thought they were good revisions. And I also appreciate watching to see how this same day study room works. So I really appreciate that attention there. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. We'll go ahead and take a roll call vote.
Director Palacios,
Yes.
Director Jasberg,
Aye.
Vice Chair Friend,
Hi.
Chair Bernal.
Aye. So that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Next is item 11B, which is the commemorative flag policy. And then related to this, we'll also discuss the LGBTQ pride flag display as well. I'll turn it over to Eric.
Thank you. So I've really enjoyed conversations on this issue with a number of you, trying to figure out the best path forward on this. And just to give you a little background and context, when it was we raised the flag in June, following what many cities and schools had done and have been doing. But when it was time to bring it down, we were reflecting on the challenges that we know exist for many members in our community. And we are also attempting to signal one of the core values that's in our strategic plan, which is that the library provides safe places, and that we work really hard to reduce bullying everywhere, but especially inside our libraries. And we don't want that signal to go away, that the library remains a safe place. And so we took the idea to the Library Advisory Commission, which traditionally we've been using to explore issues around values in our community, to see about keeping the flag up all year long, so that we can continue to signal to the community that the libraries remain a safe place. And on their advice, we decided to follow through with the idea that we'll keep it up for a year to see if it's really having that impact on the community that we're trying to affect. And so then we also decided to work through a policy which we've largely adopted from the city of Watsonville, to guide this and future decisions on commemorative flags. And hearing from the community and what some of the members have said to me, I just want to put out there, one option could be that just as as the LAC voted to keep the flag up for a year, we could also consider this as being a policy that we reflect on and build on over the course of the year to consider the principles that we have in it. So we could return to this in a year to see if it's working and has its intended goals in mind. One option to consider. I'm open to any questions.
Okay. Are there any questions for Howard?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. So thanks for that context. It's, this is an issue that, the display of things that many cities and school districts and other governmental and quasi-governmental institutions are looking at right now. And I recognize the significance of what we display in our public spaces and the importance of that message. So just a couple of questions on this. Oh, and I will say that I thank you for bringing forward also a policy to look at, because I think that it's really important to have that policy underpinning to help dictate and guide and provide those guidelines around what can occur, what isn't going to occur, what's the intent of this work. So I appreciate that. And I think Watsonville's is pretty solid. So a question, I guess two questions. So there was a recommendation for a year-long display. And so I'm wondering where the full year came from. And is that a convention that's being adopted across other library systems? Was just what, do you know, or maybe this is a question for Chair Bass as well, around just what was the discussion around that?
Yeah, I'm happy to chime in there, Eric. So in the course of our discussion on this item at the July meeting, the concern that was raised was if the flag is raised and is up all year and in perpetuity, does it actually dilute the message? Does it dilute, the significance of the flag itself? And so I think commissioners were supportive of the idea that this is very much aligned with the mission of the library, and in that vein, very wanted to support the action, but at the same time, in the absence of a policy, thought that it would be worthwhile for library staff to reevaluate, like make sure that, over, a certain time horizon, reflect and see, has this achieved what you intended it to do, or have there been, unintended consequences of it in any way? So I think the year was a bit arbitrary from the commission, but felt like a good trial period and a point that would allow for evaluation to occur afterwards.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Yeah, and I know I can imagine that's like, how do you put your finger on what's the right duration of time? And then a second question I had was, I wonder how you measure success. So I mean, how would you know if it's had an impact on the community to signal that? And that could be a hard thing to arrive at. So I wonder if there's been an opportunity to think about how, after a year, would we know this has made a difference in helping with the anti-bullying and signaling that this is a safe space for people of all orientations?
I think it's a really good question. And I'd answer it this way. I probably sound like a broken record on this, but since we're kicking off the strategic planning process, and that the length of time for that evaluation and conclusion is 6 months, it'll involve a lot of surveys. We've prioritized a large number of groups that we intend to meet with. And I think you can use different metrics to gauge over time how people are feeling. And really, this is largely about how people are feeling. Are they feeling safe? Or have they experienced problems inside our libraries? A lot of libraries use, on a regular basis, customer service surveys to find out just those type of questions, and then they measure it over time, which is something hard to do to compare those metrics over just to say a period of a month. But I think a year does give you a good set of data to review that, and that is something I would like to pursue with all these other survey questions that we're going to be putting out there. And I just want to add too, I think it's very helpful to have something that's as important as public health, because what we're really talking about is depression and suicide numbers that really kind of caught our eye when we were looking at the data that reflects the problems and challenges for many people in this community when it comes to bullying. And we're relying on data from the U.S. government and their recommendations too to show that we are supportive. But my point is that if you have a period for something that's as important as this over the course of the year, it allows a greater opportunity to have conversations. So perhaps a year from now, we return to the subject, we may discover through the data, through the surveys and our conversations, that there are other ways that we can signal that this is a safe space for the community. And then we can have those conversations. But I think it's important to have those conversations over something as important as this over a longer period of time than just a month.
Okay. Thank you. And in fact, I just have one more question. And I just want to clarify, looking at the policy, commemorative flags is listed in the plural, which suggests to me that there could be multiple flags potentially flown in addition to the United States flag or the flag of California. So I just want to confirm that. So this year-long display wouldn't preclude another message being displayed for a variable time. Okay, I just want to make sure I understand. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Chair Bass.
I had a number of questions, if that's okay, Chair Bernal.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Yeah, so one thing is that we're adopting a policy that says we should limit displays of other flags to 30 days, I think. And then, but then we're contradicting the policy. So am I correct that that the policy says we should limit displays to 30 days? And then, but at the same time, we're doing something different.
I don't know if part of the confusion, maybe we submitted Watsonville's policy, which does do that, but ours defers to the length of time that the Library Advisory Commission recommends. So that what you're quoting is the language in the Watsonville policy for that time duration.
Oh, okay. I was confused then. So our policy says it's whatever the length of time is, whatever we say it is, whatever the commission say it is. Okay. The only thing I would caution on this is that, and you know, I was city manager in Watsonville for 2 decades, and we got into huge flag fights over those decades. And that's part of the reason that they adopted the policy with the 30 days. Because what happens is then different groups, you inadvertently start pitting different groups against each other, or they perceive it that way. Because then people will say, well, what about Black Lives Matter? Why don't we have a commemorative flag for a year? Well, Asian crimes against Asian Pacific Islanders is a big issue. So why don't we have a flag for that? Then what about veterans, right? There's veteran suicide. Why not? And so I'm just saying what I experienced in Watsonville over the years. And we had huge, I don't know if Santa Cruz, if you've had those kind of fights, but we had them for many, they consumed many council meetings. And then you had inadvertently pitted people against each other. So now you had different groups coming and saying, you don't care about us. Why are you putting that flag up that way? And it became a big issue. And so that's part of the reason that Watsonville made the decision to limit flag displays for up to 30 days so that different groups could then have their month, right, in effect. So you could have different groups. So I'm not necessarily opposed to it. I understand, but I'm speaking from experience that inadvertently that became a big issue, and I don't think that's what we're intending to do, but and I don't know if there will be that reaction here. I'll just say that in Watsonville, it over the different decades, I was involved in 2 or 3 big fights over things like this by different groups, then feeling that they were being treated unfairly. And then you get into fights about if you have more than one flag, then whose should be above the other, right? And does that mean, and we got into those fights. And so anyway, it's just a word of warning that there's a lot of, I understand totally it's a good intent, but at the same time, there's a lot of issues going on in our society right now. And I don't want to say that we would prioritize, one group or the other and make someone feel like they're being left out inadvertently.
Okay, thank you.
I appreciate it. I share the concern, and I think it's something that we want to kind of keep circling back to over the course of the year. Again, not to sound like a broken record, but as we're doing the strategic plan, to ensure that this is the message is clear that this is everyone's library, and that it's safe. I mean, that's the overall message. And so maybe in a year we conclude that this is not the right way to communicate that. But I want to see what other options we have to communicate that message, and what the library stands for.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I'll comment. Or Director Desberg, did you have a question? Or
yeah, I'd just like to know if has the library had other requests or flown other commemorative flags in the past? And going on Vice Chair Friend's question about the number of flags, is there a limit? Should we have a limit on the number of flags that can be flown at a given time, given that this may fly for a year? If somebody comes in that interim period, or 2 or 3 parties come in, is there a limit that should be in the policy on how many flags can be displayed? Thank you.
I think it's a very good question. In terms of requests, I haven't received any requests since, other than the flag that we're asking you to commemorate today at our branches. Since I've been here, I have to check institutionally to see to be able to respond better to your other questions. So in terms of what other flags we may have flown, I'm not aware, but I'll have to find out for you. And in terms of the number of flags, I think that's also a really good question as well.
Okay, thank you. I can relate Santa Cruz's experience, and I can't say that we've had like wars like Watsonville maybe, but we do have a lot of requests, and so generally I think the approach has been that they come before the city council, and then the city council in the context of, because typically it's they adopt the resolution around the issue, and then within that issue there's some directive around a flag, and typically the length of the flag and where it's flown really relates to the issue. So each one is a little bit different. Like we do have one, a Black Lives Matter one, for example, and that goes up, I believe, for a month. I think it's the Black History Month period. So they all kind of vary depending on the issue and the topic. But typically it's the council who adopts those as the requests come through. That's been our experience. Okay, any other questions or comments?
I had a question, Chair Bernal. In Santa Cruz, do you limit to a month? Does your policy, or have you flown a flag for longer than that?
We don't have a policy per se that dictates any specific period, and I can't recall now. Like I said, it's all defined within the particular item that comes forward, and I can't off the top of my head recall that there's one that, and actually Director Howard, maybe when you did some of this research, But we don't, our policy doesn't dictate a specific time frame because we don't really have a policy like Watsonville does. It's like I said, an item comes forward within that resolution. It dictates what the length of time will be and when it will be flown every year, and it varies from item to item. I don't know, Director Howard, did you find out anything more? I kind of directed some of the staff. Yeah.
I didn't see a time limit either in Santa Cruz's.
Yeah, we don't.
They have, I believe, just they have actually, you have specific policies for when it's going to be at half-mast and a couple other things, but nothing.
Yeah, but generally, most of them are tied to a particular time frame that's where that particular issue is celebrated or recognized. So it generally is tied to that time period, whatever that might be, the ones that I've seen. Okay, any other comments or questions? All right, I'll turn it over to members of the public. See if any comments.
Chair Brunel, I would just like to clarify, we are combining 10I and 11B. Is that correct?
That's right. Do you want to, I guess we can move on to that one. I guess that we can do that and then pick combined comments. That's one way of doing it.
Okay.
That might
So
be
we
more,
have, I'm sorry, go ahead.
okay, I was gonna say that might be more effective than I guess in terms of just having the conversation so that people can comment on both and how they relate with each other. All right, why don't we do that? I think that's a good suggestion. So I'll turn it over to Director Howard. Did you want to do a report on the item, the consent calendar item?
Thank you. I did try to wrap up both concerns in my little summary.
Okay.
So but I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Okay, just want to make sure there's any additional from I think it's Ms. Bass. Is there anything else that you'd like to comment or add regarding the? Just want to make sure.
No, not at this time.
Okay. All right. Okay. So it sounds like we've kind of talked about both of them, and there's no further comments or questions on those from the board members at least. Okay, we'll move on to public comment. You can comment on both items.
All right, there are public comments. The first one is in the Zoom Q&A. It is from Jen Hooker. It says, as an SCPL staff person, I can say that I have seen more LGBTQ plus identified patrons come in and thank us for flying the Progress Pride flag more than I've heard comments. Seeing queer families come in for the first time and get library cards or seeing themselves reflected in the literature we offer is both heartwarming and affirming of the mission of the library. And that ends that comment.
Thank you.
And then we have a comment from Judy Grunstra submitted on July 31st. It says, quote, hello, I appreciate being able to review the City of Watsonville's policy about commemorative flags as included in today's packet. That policy addresses concerns I had when the LAC approved the Santa Cruz Library's policy of flying the LGBTQA plus flag for the entire year at all branches. My concern was, what if other groups approached the library to fly their flag? Black Lives Matter, just for an example. How could the library refuse any request as long as it supported the library values, quote unquote, of equity, etc.? The Watsonville policy allows for the display of commemorative flags for a 1-month period. It would seem reasonable to fly the LGBTQA plus flag during what has become Gay Rights Month. Flying it year-round seems excessive. The Watsonville policy also states that if 2 flags were displayed in 1 month, each would get 15 days. Also, the order of number 3 and number 4 in the draft policy on page 93 of the packet is confusing. I believe they should be reversed. Number 4 states that, quote, the library shall only consider a request for authorization to display a commemorative flag on library flagpoles from the library director, end quote. This would seem to preclude number 3, which states, quote, "The library shall display commemorative flags on library flagpoles if previously endorsed by the LAC and authorized by the LJPA," end quote. If the library director is the person to authorize the display, it would then go to the LAC. The LAC does not first endorse it and then ask the library director to authorize display, does it? Thank you, Judy Grenstra. And that ends her comment.
Okay.
Our
thank
next
you.
comment is from Jean Brocklebank, submitted on August 4th on agenda item 11B as well. It states, quote, "Please read this comment loudly enough to be heard, as well as slowly, as though I am speaking. It is less than 3 minutes length. Pause. At their July 19th meeting, the Library Advisory Commission approved flying a specific commemorative flag throughout the year. However, the Watsonville Library's commemorative flag policy limits to no more than 31 days the flying of any commemorative flag. This is a very wise decision by the Watsonville Library because it is much more inclusive, allowing for more than just one flag to be flown to the exclusion of others. There could be many such flags in our diverse community that would meet the definition of a commemorative flag in the proposed policy. Please adopt the language of the Watsonville policy. Flags shall be authorized for display for a period of time that is reasonable or customary for the ceremony or the subject to be commemorated, but no longer than 31 continuous days," end quote. Then add to that quote, "If more than 2 flags are endorsed by the LAC and authorized by the JPA for 1 month, then each flag shall be displayed for no more than 15 days each," end quote. Thank you, Jean Brocklebank, Live Oak resident. And that ends Jean's comment. Our next comment for item 11B comes from Michael Lewis, submitted August 4th. Quote, "LJPA board members, I am writing concerning the outdoor display of commemorative flags at Santa Cruz Public Libraries. I've noticed the LGBTQ pride flag flying at the Live Oak Branch Library for some time. The Library Advisory Commission has recommended that this flag should be flown throughout the year. The proposed SCPL commemorative flag policy is based in part on the Watsonville Public Library policy, but it leaves out the limitation of any single flag to be flown no more than 31 days. It's unfortunate that this clause was left out of the proposed policy, as flying a flag for one cause year-round would not follow the concern for equity and inclusiveness and would not meet these values that underpin the library's strategic plan and its mission. Please add the following language to the SCPL commemorative flag policy. Quote, "Commemorative flags shall be authorized for display for a period of time that is reasonable or customary for the ceremony of the subject to be commemorated, but no more than 31 continuous days. If the JPA authorizes more than 2 flags for 1 month, then each flag shall be displayed for no more than 15 days each," end quote. Thank you, Michael Lewis, Live Oak. And that ends Michael's comment. And that ends public comment.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, I'll bring it back to the board for deliberation and action.
Okay, so it seems like if we were to take these items in order, we might want to look at the flag policy first and then look at the LAC recommendation for the flying of the flag. So listening to the public comment and also hearing the comments of member Palacios, I think that the time duration is something for us to consider. And I'm also hearing about wanting, really the point is sending that message of inclusivity for the library. So maybe some feedback I would provide for Director Howard through the strategic plan process, which I know is so pivotal this year and is going to have so many tentacles into a lot of the operations, is to really think about how is the best way to have a graphic or physical representation of inclusivity. So I maybe the Progress Pride flag is a strong one right now, but maybe there's even a more inclusive way to show that really this is a very big tent, this is a big umbrella, and we want even more, we want to be here for everyone. And just because we're showing this symbol doesn't mean that others aren't as important and aren't there as well. So I don't have any solution to that, but I think that could be an interesting conversation to mull as we go forward. With that, there was a recommendation to swap the order of a couple of the items. I think that's a minor change, and that seemed to make sense if someone was reading it in a linear way, just to read it more as a process document. So just to swap 3 and 4, if there's agreement there. But I would support the policy as recommended, with the caveat of really watching and looking at the externalities and what's going to happen. I think we heard a strong caution from the experience of one of our cities in our county about it. And we don't want to do that. The idea of pitting groups against each other, I think is harrowing and not something we want to see. So what I would just want is, if a policy is adopted today that allows this malleable time, this malleable duration of display, to really watch that and be open to bringing back a policy revision if we're getting a hint of conflict or challenge. I think that this board should really think about a modification, because that's not at all what an outcome I think we want to have. So I will just put out there, I would support it as crafted with that minor shift, and then also the request for the strategic plan to think about the best way to project inclusivity. And then just to watch very carefully if we're going to have conflicts or challenges with the time duration. So I'll put that up for discussion. I'm not making a motion at this point because I want to hear from others, but that's where I'd wanted to start the discussion.
Yeah, my biggest concern is the time duration issue, just because I've lived through it. And I hate to think that there's a group like Black Lives Matter, Asian Pacific Islanders, the Latino groups that feel somehow that they're not being prioritized because of this. And then we force them to take action, and then it becomes a conflict. And I think that's the last thing we're trying to do. And so I think that is why Watsonville put in the time limit, is because of that. And so what they tried to do is do different months for different groups. So as Director Bernal said, during Black History Month, they did fly the Black Lives Matter. During other months, they fly to other groups. So that's my biggest concern. And so I worry because I just don't know how you prioritize. If one other group comes in and says, we want our flag to be flown for 6 months, then how do we judge that, or that year? And then, that's all it takes to start, because obviously you can't, we're not trying to prioritize one group over the other. We're trying to be inclusive of everybody. So that's the only warning I would put out. I don't feel super strongly that, because I know right now it's not there, the conflict's not there. But I worry because it is through lived experience that that's what ended up happening in Watsonville, and it was not meant to be that way, but that's how it was perceived, and it became a lot of hurt feelings, a lot of anger, and misinterpretations of what was meant by prioritizing one flag over the other, and so forth. And so anyway, that's my biggest concern.
Would you recommend sticking with the 31 days, or would you, and in Watsonville, was it just one flag at a time, or did Watsonville allow multiple messages to be flown simultaneously?
Yeah, they have, I think they do have multiple messages at times.
Yeah.
They have a POW-MIA flag that's flown in perpetuity.
Okay.
And then they add to that. So it just gets very complicated, right? And I understand what we're trying to do, but I just think that it ends up being very complicated very quickly. And I would recommend sticking to the 31 days and just have different groups come forward, in different months, and find different ways to invite groups and make sure that they feel safe, all groups. and to make sure that we're not prioritizing any one group over the other at all. So I would feel more comfortable with that, but on the other hand, I'm not, it's a tough issue, and ultimately I could go either way.
Dr. Jesper?
So I just want to make sure the recommendation we're considering today is just, we're commenting on this policy. It's not up for adoption as I read the report. So given that we're just providing input on this, I agree that we need to have in this policy something that deals with multiple groups coming forward, and whether it's a time frame on how long a flag can fly, or just how conflicts would get resolved and how many flags we could fly. I think that needs to be in the policy, because I think it's going to come up. Capitol, we haven't had that, but we did just adopt a flag policy, and it doesn't have limits, but each flag needs to be adopted and made part of that policy that includes the times that it will be flown. So although we don't have a 31-day limit, we do specify timeframes when we adopt a flag to be flown. And I think that needs to be part of this policy. I would be supportive of continuing to fly the LGBTQ flag until this policy is adopted, and then making it in accordance with that. But I think the policy needs to include that. Thank you.
Okay. So just to be clear, the LGBT flag, is that, are they recommending that it be flown year round and then evaluated after the 1 year? Is that right? And then go from there. So it's not in perpetuity, but it's that's really the.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I mean, my sentiment is similar to what others have expressed in terms of I think there has to be some kind of timeline or time frame, because you're right. Then other groups are going to want to have the same request or need, and that will lead to the conflicts and it's hard to do them all at once, and then you start losing maybe some of that meaning that seemed to be important to individuals. It seems to me. Now, what that time frame should be, I think the 30 days is probably more aligned to typically what is celebrated when we have some of these events that happen. So I think that's why that's in place. Yeah, I can go either way too, but I do believe it's important to have a time frame, and maybe it should be that it's 30 days, unless there's some an exception can be made if there's some particular reason why it needs to be longer than that. If there's some particular meaning or something that's happened that makes it desirable to do that. If and with libraries too, there's if there's a particular area that you're focusing on for the year, or something that's related to the strategic plan, as you pointed out, that makes it sort of logical to tie a particular flag or something to it. And that might make sense, but I don't think it makes sense to have something in perpetuity. I think that's just going to create more division and issues over the long term. Okay, so with respect to the first item, I think you've received the comments on that. And then with respect to the second item, that really is then, it's a little bit awkward, I guess, because we're not formally adopting the policy, but we are essentially being asked to endorse it's a specific flag at this point, and that's for the year round. So how do people feel about that, given the comments with respect to the second item?
Well, and I think Director Jesberg had an interesting idea too. Since the policy is unresolved, maybe we table consideration of the display duration, leave the flag while the policy is moving through, because it looks like it would go to the LAC on September 20th and come back to the board on October 7th. And so maybe that's a more appropriate time, because then we'd have a fully formed policy that had gone through input channels that could come back, and then there could be consideration of a display request to be consistent with that policy. So that is an approach we could take.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, I think that makes sense.
I would support that if you want to make that into a motion. And I would also ask that staff outreach to other groups as well. That you outreach to other groups such as Black Lives Matters and some of the other groups so that they're aware of the policy and that they can have any input into it as well.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Okay, so I guess we'll make that into a motion. So I will move that we defer discussion on the display of the pride flag while the commemorative flag policy works its way through the input and comes back for final adoption. But in the interim, the flag can fly at all branches. And then the additional direction to reach out to these other groups to, get input and hear their interest.
I'll second that.
Okay. All right. We'll go ahead and do a vote then. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Director Palacios,
Yes.
Director Jasberg,
Aye.
Vice Chair Friend,
Aye.
Chair Bernard.
Yes. Okay, thank you. So that passes unanimously. Okay, we can now move on to item 11B, I'm sorry, 11C, which is the debt collection dismissal. Turn it over to Director Howard.
Hi, thank you. So this is something that we've discussed before with all of you, and it is also part of our mission to provide equitable service and bring back users into the library. This does not include damaged items. I know some members had questions around that. We're talking about late fees. And we will continue to go after patrons who owe money for damaged items. We do have a collection service that pursues that. And also if patrons want to continue to check out items, then they need to bring their account into the correct balance to do so.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions for Acting Director Howard? Board members? Okay, doesn't look like it. Okay, do we have any members of the public that'd like to comment on this item?
Chair Bernal, there is one public comment on agenda item 11C. It was received July 31st, 2021 from Judy Grenstra. It says, quote, "Hello again. In item 11C, the JPA is being asked to approve the forgiving of $325,000 worth of fines for overdue materials. That is not a small chunk of change, but you will probably approve it. What is the amount of money still outstanding due to damaged and lost materials? I assume the library will still attempt to recover that money. Thank you, Judy Grenstra." And that ends her comment as well as public comment.
Okay, thank you. Bring it back to the board for any deliberation and action.
I'll move approval of staff's recommendation.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Director Palacios,
Yes.
Director Jasberg,
Aye.
Vice Chair Friend,
Aye.
Chair Bernard.
Yes. Thank you. It passes unanimously. Next is item 11D, which is a presentation on programming. I'll turn it back over to Acting Director Howard.
Hi, thank you. I can't commend staff enough for all of the changes that they've had to pursue over this past year and a half. We really migrated very quickly to a virtual platform and created some incredibly innovative programming to help support the community as we were all going through so much change and hardship. from economic hardship to health concerns and the stress of the pandemic to evacuations because of the forest fires and much more, assisting families, providing therapists to meet with families online to help support them as they dealt with the challenges of bringing their kids out of school and into their home and becoming teachers as well as parents. They've done so much, and we're going to continue to reflect on the lessons learned from this past year. We have certainly learned some new skills, and we're going to see how we can put them to good use. But one of the things that we've discovered is in some of the online programming that we've done, we've had much greater participation than some of the programs that we've done in person. And so we are looking to see how we can support hybrid programming. And then I think just one testament to how the skills improved among our staff is to look at the summer reading numbers compared to last year, because they nearly doubled this year in terms of our participation. And both were done virtually, even though this summer we did 3 outdoor program events to encourage summer reading, and then also to call attention to the fact that we have expanded our library hours and that we're back in our buildings, and we're going to be doing programming again in person in the fall. And so you'll hear more from Heather and Jessica after today's presentation, because we're going to return to this similar topic later in the fall when we dig deeper into summer reading and the outcomes that we had from it, and then also what we hope to do next summer as well. So I'm going to turn it over to them to continue this discussion. So thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Heather Norquist, and I manage youth programs and services at SCPL. Jessica Goodman, who manages adult programs and services, and I are going to share a presentation on this year's summer reading program. This year, we partnered with Friends of the Santa Cruz Public Libraries, Atlantis Fantasy World, Penny Ice Creamery, and Book to Action to present our program, which is for all ages. Summer reading is a fun program for everyone, but it's also a valuable program because it helps prevent summer slide, learning loss that occurs when children are out of school and away from structured learning activities. Kids who don't read over the summer fall behind their peers when school starts up again, and the effects of this summer slide can last a lifetime. The most pronounced summer learning loss occurs among students in grades K through 3. Their skills are new and developing, and the time away from regular practice during schooling means they're most likely to forget. These summer setbacks are particularly worrisome because the early grades are the foundation for the achievement, work habits, and perceptions about self-confidence and schooling that impact performance for years to come. This past school year, school closures and remote learning have compounded learning loss, all of which disproportionately impacts Black children, Indigenous children, children of color, and all children who live in poverty. We used the Beanstack platform again this year to log reading and activities. Participants could also choose to use paper logs only or in conjunction with the Beanstack app. They recorded their time spent reading and earn incentives for reaching reading goals and completing activities. Here's an example of the paper reading log for teens and adults. All of our summer reading materials are in Spanish and English. It explains how to participate and the incentives for each age group. If someone chooses to participate using only the paper log, they need to come to a branch or call TelInfo to be registered into Beanstack. Staff will then log their achievements and issue their incentives. Here's a screenshot from the Beanstack app showing how a reader would log their reading minutes. Every child and teen ages 0 to 18 who signs up receives a $10 summer reading certificate for Atlantis Fantasy World. Every child ages 0 to 11 who reads for 5 hours earns an incentive prize book to keep. These are selected by our youth librarians and purchased with funds provided by the Friends of the Santa Cruz Public Libraries. Every child and teen who reads 20 hours earns a free scoop coupon donated by Penny Ice Creamery. Teens who read for 5 hours receive a goodie bag with a fidget spinner, a mini cube puzzle, and a stress ball, all with our logo on them. Adults who read 5 hours receive a tote bag with our summer reading logo and a raffle ticket. All ages receive a raffle ticket at 10 and 15 hours of reading, and also after completing 5 and 10 activities. Raffle prizes are gift cards from local businesses. Adults who read 20 hours receive a grand prize raffle ticket. The grand prizes include a family membership to the Museum of Art and History and a family membership to the Monterey Bay Aquarium. This year, our marketing department provided summer reading banners to help promote the program at all the branches. It was very helpful to have volunteers supporting summer reading this year. 16 volunteers, including 8 teens, served as summer reading branch hosts, inviting patrons to participate in summer reading and helping them to sign up. Volunteers also contributed to the success of our grab-and-go craft programs. 8 volunteers spent 96 hours putting together over 1,000 grab-and-go craft kits. 7 volunteers spent 21 hours putting together 350 craft kits for distribution at summer meal sites. In addition to offering incentives for reading and learning, we offer special programming in the summer to help promote the program. I'm going to talk about some of the youth programs we offered this summer, and Jessica will talk about the adult ones. Just like last year, we presented summer reading programs virtually. We scheduled a variety of performances, one per week throughout June and July. These included magicians, circus performers, musicians, and an educational program with bats. All of the virtual performances were interactive, and some were bilingual. We also found a way to offer STEAM and nature journaling in a virtual way. Librarian Catherine Upton created a series of 4 grab-and-go STEAM kits for kids. They registered through the library calendar and chose the branch where they would pick up the kit. The kits included almost all the materials they would need and instructions on how to make the project at home. The 4 kit themes were mini flashlights, paper fidget spinners, electromagnets, and robotic hands. Here are some images of the finished projects. These have been incredibly popular this summer. We distributed 124 mini flashlight kits and 188 fidget spinners. Here's an excerpt from the instructions for the electromagnet. It gives a link to the Oakland Toy Lab where we found this project and the URL for more information. It talks about the project and it explains that the concepts address our electromagnetism, current, electrons, forces, and ferrous objects. Here are the contents of the kit that the child receives. And then here are some photos showing the steps of how to assemble the electromagnet. These were accompanied by detailed instructions and a resource list of books available at the library. Here is some feedback we received from a grandparent. Thank you for your response and for conveying my appreciation to all workers and volunteers alike for the efforts to positively engage children in reading and learning. Another very popular program was our nature journaling series, presented by librarians Jackie Danziger and Brenda McElroy, along with nature journalist Melinda Nakagawa. This program was originally conceived as a program for teens, but has been popular with adults and families as well. We distributed 50 blank journals and colored pencil sets to participants who can then watch recorded videos explaining how to do nature journaling. And over 100 people watched the recorded videos. Here's a short excerpt from a video that Jackie made.
But here's what I got. And now I'm going to do the outline of the whole flower head. I'm going to start with that outline. You could call this an umbel. It's a big compound flower. Looks a bit like that. And I see little hairs on the stems. They've got these hairy stems. Why is that, I wonder? Is it for defense? Does it keep insects away? You can use the journal prompt, I wonder, if you have questions like that. Draw those hairs. There we go. And they also have feathery leaves, even more feather-like than the poppy leaf. I'm just going to get the basic shape of these and I'm going to fill it in. And then I'll fill in these flower heads. Hey, it's getting sunny. I'm going to put my hat on. Remember to protect yourself from the sun. Bring a hat and wear sunscreen. Here's what I have so far. Whew, it's getting hot out here. I'm going to head out and finish this at home. It's warm.
And that was Jackie working in the Felton Discovery Park outside the Felton branch. On 3 Saturdays in July, we presented outdoor events at parks, one in each region of the county. This was an opportunity to let the public know that the library is still here, ready to welcome them back into the buildings now that it's safe to do so. We're looking forward to in-person programming starting in the fall. It was also one more way to promote summer reading. People could continue to sign up through July 31st. Outreach to the community is an important part of summer reading as we work to connect with people who may not be aware of all the programs and services the library has to offer. This year, we received an $8,000 grant from the California State Library to provide pop-up programming at 8 summer meal sites. We visited each site twice during the summer, and during June and July, we distributed books, craft kits, jump ropes, and summer reading logs to 836 children and teens. Our participation numbers this year are very impressive. This chart compares participation for 2021 with 2020. The number of children registered has increased from 732 last year to 1,472 this year. Teen participation was at 181 last year and is at 291 this year. And we have 631 adults registered this year compared to 258 last year. The total number of registrants is 2,394 compared to 1,171 last year. I will now hand the presentation over to Jessica, who will talk about the adult program.
Excuse me. Good morning. This is Jessica Goodman. I manage adult programs and services, and I'll take you through the adult summer reading program. So as Heather showed, this year we had 631 adults participating in summer reading, which is more than double the number that we had last year. Prizes include our brand new SCPL summer reading tote bag and raffle tickets for local merchant gift cards, Monterey Bay Aquarium, and Santa Cruz Museum of Art and History. Our program series this summer was Book to Action. It's a one book, one community type program that's similar to the popular annual Our Community Reads program that our Aptos Friends chapter puts on. So it's a program where participants all read the same book and then participate in a variety of programs on its topics. Book to Action brings community members together through literature to better understand ourselves and each other by tackling issues important to our community. It was funded by a California Center for the Book's $7,000 grant to support a keynote speaker and books to give out to readers. We did this through a partnership with the Watsonville Public Library, bringing all of Santa Cruz County together. The book we chose was Dear America, Notes of an Undocumented Citizen. It's the best-selling memoir by Jose Antonio Vargas. The author is a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist and a leading voice for the human rights of immigrants. The book takes readers into his story, sharing his journey to America from the Philippines as a child, his life as an undocumented immigrant, and his journey through America as an immigration reform activist. The book explores one of the most divisive questions facing our country today. How do you define American? The grant paid for copies of the book to give out to readers, 150 English, 75 young adult, and 75 Spanish copies. We also circulated 55 copies from the library's collection in print, ebook, and e-audiobook formats. We held a series of events with our partners to explore the themes of equity, immigration, citizenship, and identity. These themes fit into the equity part of our strategic work plan. We had book discussions with our Boulder Creek, Capitola, Felton, La Selva Beach, and Scotts Valley book groups, English and Spanish language book discussions facilitated by the Watsonville Public Library, and a book discussion with people incarcerated in our jail, facilitated by our County Correctional Facility team librarians. We had a writing workshop led by Rachel Goodman of K-Squid Community Radio on Defining American, telling your story in 240 words or less. We had an oral history panel on the history and heritage of Filipino families in Santa Cruz County, showcasing the Watsonville is in the Heart oral history project in partnership with UC Santa Cruz Humanities Institute. There was a panel with the Community Action Board of Santa Cruz County and the Thriving Immigrants Collaborative, discussing current issues affecting our local immigrant communities. This panel focused on the action part of Book to Action, introducing participants to local organizations supporting immigrants and how to get involved. K-Squid Community Radio offered a 4-part radio series and discussion on Pastures of Plenty, a history of California farm workers. And we also had 2 weeks of screening the film Documented online, which is the documentary created by Jose Antonio Vargas on his experiences. Our keynote was the author talk with Jose Antonio Vargas, facilitated by local journalist Wallace Bain. We co-hosted this event online with both the Watsonville and Sunnyvale libraries, and this was our first time working with a live simultaneous Spanish language interpreter for an online program. So we got great feedback from participants throughout the program series, and there were a couple that really stood out to me. One participant said that they can relate to the author's story and express how important it is for them and their community to see themselves reflected in the stories and programs of the library. They appreciated the book choice and how the program opened up conversations about immigration, belonging, acceptance, and more. Another participant talked about their appreciation of Mr. Vargas's articulate and honest remarks and the challenges his experiences and perspectives are for everyone seeking reform. They said, at the top of my list was when he said, I had to stop living my life according to other people's ignorance. Also, the image of the library as a map, exactly right. This program is exactly what public libraries should be doing. So as you can see from the descriptions of all of these events, the success of our program series was the result of partnering with several community organizations to create a variety of programs that showcase what they do. As we work with more partners on programs in general, we've started creating collaborative agreements that establish our common goals and spell out each partner's contributions. This helps clarify our mutual expectations and provides a solid foundation for program development and delivery. For Book to Action, we created a collaborative agreement with the Watsonville Public Library. Our goals included things like building a stronger relationship between our organizations, planning a program series together that encourages learning, connection, volunteerism, and community engagement, and promoting thought, discussion, and action on our book's themes of equity, community, identity, and immigration. The agreement also spelled out the details of what we each would be contributing to successfully reach these goals. So some of those details were things like hosting virtual programs on our Zoom platform, ensuring that the marketing ensures both organizations' branding, and collaborating on participant survey design, among other things. So it takes staff creativity, energy, and time to put on all of these programs. The success of our adult summer programming was also due to the incredible collaboration in our own team. Diane Cowan, who was awarded the grant, Jen Hooker, who also led the program series, and librarians Lorena Lopez, Susan Nilsson, Jesse Silva, and Victor Willis. Our volunteer coordinator and collaborative agreement expert, Judy Russell, and our Zoom tech extraordinaire, who you all know, Sarah Jones. Similarly, the lunch at the library outreach team was Alejandra Ruiz, Brenda McElroy, Catherine Upton, Julie Soto, Eric Chalfant, Essie Barroso Ramirez, Lorena Lopez, Susan Nilsson, and Valerie Murphy. And there were many people involved in planning our overall summer reading program. Brenda McElroy, Catherine Upton, Diane Cowan, Eric Chalfant, Jackie Danziger, Judy Russell, Julie Soto, Lauren Wesham, Patty Webster, Rowan Rammer, Sandy Imperio, and Valerie Murphy. So what did we learn? With Book to Action, we really experienced how collaboration with community partners brought a wealth of creative programming that amplified its impact. Collaborative partnership agreements lead to successful experiences by defining clear goals, expectations, and contributions. And when we work with organizations that have different amounts and kinds of resources available to them, the equitable distribution of responsibilities is important to consider. In addition to the strong Book to Action program series that anchored our adult programming this summer, we also now have open library buildings where patrons can once again interact with our staff and with volunteers, learn about our summer programs, and sign up for summer reading. It's very different from last year when our interactions were limited to curbside hold pickup and phone or email questions. It does take staff investment to create and host successful virtual programs, including those that are being delivered by partner organizations. We started using live interpretation to achieve a bilingual program, and we think this can help us start reaching communities that we haven't traditionally served in our programs. And don't be afraid to try something new, which is pretty much the lesson of this entire past year and a half. Heather and the youth team shared these lessons that they learned. Ice cream is a great incentive. Grab and go kits are hugely popular. Partnering with summer meal sites has been an effective way to connect with underserved families. It's extremely challenging to provide quality summer reading program when we're understaffed. And helping with summer reading promotion and signups is a great opportunity for volunteers. So looking forward, what's next for programs? So we started offering virtual programs online in Zoom back in April of 2020. We had to quickly pivot our program model due to the upheavals of the pandemic. And since then, we've hosted many online programs, both live and recorded, as well as the self-directed programs like grab and go crafts and film screenings. We've learned a lot about how to deliver successful virtual programs and some of the benefits, like the ability for people to attend from the comfort of their homes without needing to deal with traffic or transportation or parking or other mobility issues they may have, or just the tight schedules of people's busy lives. These programs also allowed us to have presenters from other places, such as speakers in the Genealogical Society lecture series or the Book to Action author talk. Of course, people are eager to meet in person, face-to-face with each other now, experience programs together inside their library branches, and spend more time away from screens. And then other people are not yet ready for in-person group programs. So we're exploring how a mix of in-person, virtual, and hybrid in-person and virtual programs, where some attendees are physically present and others are online, how these different formats could work for us and what resources would be needed to offer the different formats. There has been interest in a hybrid programming meetings model, which is turning out to be more complicated than one might imagine. It's important to us that everyone who's attending a program have a good experience and feel included, which becomes a tricky balance in a hybrid environment. There are technical considerations like where the cameras are positioned, how sound and microphone works, so that everyone can see and hear and speak. And presenters need to be able to equally engage both audiences. There are also significant considerations, as always, around our most precious resource, which is our staff. Our hours of operation have expanded. Our library branches are getting busier and busier, which is so great to see. And we need to have staff there to interact with patrons and provide our services. We also need staff answering phones because many more people began using our telephone information service after we closed our buildings in March of 2020. And so many patrons are continuing to use this service more than they did pre-COVID. We also, of course, want to offer a variety of programs for all ages in our branches. Our new and remodeled buildings are designed to be community learning centers. So we also want to continue developing community outreach programs to underserved populations, like the Lunch at the Library summer meal sites. It does take staff time, and it takes our staff away from the library buildings so that we can successfully reach people where they are, which is so critical for inclusion and equity work. So again, it's a tricky balance, and it will require developing evaluation criteria and prioritizing, since we can't do everything. We've also had great success in the past and during COVID with volunteer-led programs and with community-led programs like that Aptos Friends annual Our Community Read program. There are a variety of programs that the La Selva Beach Friends offer in the branch. We have the Genealogical Society lecture series, so there are a number that we do. Also with a variety of partnerships with other organizations, like our current wildfire program series that we're doing with the Museum of Natural History, or the social services partners who work in our Life Literacy Center at downtown. These programs bring community member expertise into the library so that we can host a wide range of engaging programs that are relevant to the community at their branches or on Zoom. And we continue to develop and expand this type of programming. It does still take significant staff time to build and maintain those relationships and to provide support so the community members can be successful with the programs that they offer. So we anticipate that the time and the community engagement process that we're investing in developing the new strategic plan over the next several months, that it will ultimately pay off in a strategic plan that will help us establish the framework for our service and our programming priorities. And we're very much looking forward to that. And the final slide is the reference to the research that Heather shared about school closures, remote learning, learning loss, and the disproportionate impacts. And thank you for your support.
Thank you, Jessica and Heather. I just wanted to add to, I had it in the summary in our report, a big challenge for us, and it's a challenge for every library in the country, is when you're thinking about equity, how do you find that right balance that Jessica was referring to between, if you have staff who are out at a school lunch site, where we know we have patrons who need library services that may not be able to, because of other hurdles, take advantage of our services inside the buildings. How do you find that balance between providing equitable service and then also managing the library hours? Because if we have staff at a lunch school site, that means obviously we don't have staff inside the buildings. And we have these beautiful buildings that we love and the community loves. And we want to continue to showcase them and have them open so that everyone can take advantage of all the resources that are available inside them. But as Jessica said, our most precious resource is our staff. And they provide remarkable services in our bookmobile, in hard to reach corners of the county, in our jails, and in our schools as well. So striking that balance to figure out how to allocate those resources is going to be one of our big challenges as we develop the strategic plan.
Okay, thank you very much. That was really excellent presentation. Definitely accomplished much. But I'll first turn it around to directors, see if they have any questions. And I noticed that Director Palacios had to leave the meeting, but he commented in the Q&A box. So, but are there any questions from board members? Comments?
Thank you, Chair Bernal. I don't have any questions. I just want to say the work has been magnificent. It's really, I mean, we've been saying this for the past 18 months about the creativity and the change and the adaptability, and to see this emphasis on meeting people where they are, going out to these communities, thinking about how they can best participate. These new models, I think, is just what an enrichment for our communities. So I can't commend you enough for this work. I know that we're just seeing the surface of what it actually entails to deliver it, but it seems like the impact is really there. So I genuinely, Heather and Jessica, thank you so much for what you've done. And I hope you share our appreciation and thanks with your teams. It is just remarkable. And to Director Howard, that's a great question. I guess I have to reflect that back to you. How do you balance needing to keep the lights on and the libraries open and inviting users to our beautiful new buildings while also balancing resources to go out and do these critical services for people who may not have the means or the time to come into our libraries. So I think that is a central question of the strategic plan and the upcoming discussion over the next year about how to balance our resources with our hours and expectations for what we do and what we stand for as a library system. So I don't have any great insights on that, although I think that you really have nailed it. And I think as we consider the next generation of library services, it should be a balance of the lights on in the building and maintaining great services there, and also flexing up to meet our community where they need to meet us. And so we can help bring them along for academic and enrichment success as well. So I just want to say thank you so much. It really is an inspiration. My son did participate in the youth reading, and so that's been great. He and his dad have been reading along. I need to follow up on that, see how they're doing, but it is just wonderful. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Director Jesper.
So I'll just chime in on what Vice Chair Friend said. It's the programs are amazing, and people putting together your ability to adapt to the pandemic and closing the buildings, and with which showed the usage going up from 2020 to 2021 is great. And I think you guys are doing a great job, and I really appreciate it. I don't have any feedback at this point. Kind of filling in for Jamie here, but I know he supports the programs you guys are doing, and thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll just make a few comments too. Don't have any major questions, but yeah, the work is pretty amazing. It's incredible to see the numbers increase. And on this question of balance, yeah, that's a difficult one, because obviously what you've offered has been really tremendous, and allows access to a whole range of individuals who have that need. But the facilities themselves too have the same level of import, as far as access and what we can do. And it'll become even more so as the facilities become more user-friendly and more accessible to the overall community. So that's going to be a real big challenge to provide that balance. And I think it will be just a matter of really just trying to align the demands of the community, the needs of the community, with the resources that we have in a way that is sort of reasonable, and maybe adjust and is flexible over time. Because I think with respect to the facilities, again, the schools start again, there'll be more demand for those, and particularly as our facilities improve too. So we'll have to really just adjust, I guess. But in any case, the work is really, really amazing, and it seems like there's definitely a lot more people out there that could take advantage of it and use it. And the approach that you've taken by partnering obviously makes a lot of sense. And so continue to do that and to promote it and get more people engaged. And it's perfect for the times that we had now, right? With the pandemic going on. That's the other part that I think is impressive, the adjustability and the flexibility of quickly changing to the needs of the community. So we'll have to do that again, pivot again. So anyway, my thanks to all of your hard work, Eric and Jessica and Heather and all the other library staff. It's really, really greatly appreciated. And with that, I'll see if there are any other members of the public who might have, or members of the public that might have some comments on this item.
Chair Burnell, Victor Willis has his hand up. Victor, go ahead. Victor, you may need to unmute yourself. Well, Chair Burnell, perhaps his raised hand was in error. So.
Okay. All right. Anyone else on the public that'd like to comment?
Chair Burnell, I see no further public comment.
All right. Okay, so it sounds like you wanted input. I don't think there's any particular action that needed to be taken. Is there anything else, Director Howard, that you needed from us on this item?
I just wanted to also thank you, Director Bernal and Director Friend. It's been a real pleasure working with you. So thank you.
Thank you. All right. So with that, we'll move on to our last item, which is a scheduled upcoming meetings on October 7th at 5 p.m. And as was noticed earlier, we may or may not be in person. That'll be determined as we get closer to the meeting. And more information will be obviously shared with the public as the meeting approaches. We do list anticipated upcoming agenda items here: Capitola leases, fourth quarter financial reports, license agreement for the county library and PG&E, and then today we added the item on the flag policy as well. And I'm sure there might be some changes to that. Any questions or comments on item 12 from board members? No. Okay. So then we move on to the next item, which is adjournment. So again, thanks everyone for your time today, this morning. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
And Tina, thank you for your service. Best of
Thank
luck.
you.
You're going to be amazing. And Chair Bernal, thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Please enjoy your retirement.
Thank you.
I don't know.
You'll see me with
Have
my
some
granddaughter.
retirement for all of us.
We'll be at the library all day. That's where he's going to be.
Yeah, with my granddaughter.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Doing the summer reading program.
Exactly. All right.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you,
All right.
Sarah. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Take care.